All right, so now that we've got basically the body made and even some basic clothing and armor made now with the quad draw, make live stuff, what we want to do is we want to do the face and the ear today, right? I might have a little bit more of a video just to kind of put some quick eyeballs in and smooth them up, and then maybe add a few extra edge loops for the knuckles and maybe the nostrils come later in kind of the week, right? So it's kind of one of those things where as we work and get through this, there might be like a smidge, a little finish up for the next videos that we posted, kind of later in the week. And that'll be easy because it'll be like 5 minutes of just dropping a few things in, a quick UV unwrap. And then, like I said, there'll be a quick 10 minutes in Mudbox and like 5-10 minutes lighting and rendering in Maya. But I really wanted to get you guys to the point where all the major stuff is done. The clothing armor, all the major body parts and appendages. And if we have to just do a little bit of smoothing and a little bit of extra fine-tuning things, pretty easy to do. So now we're ready to do the face. Now the face shaping is gonna take some time, right? It's one of the trickier things. There's just no way around that, right? Because we're all experts in the face. So I'm going to try to give you a good enough kind of basic gist of all these forms as we build. All right, so I'm going to go to symmetry, and of course we're going to go to topology, and we're going to pick an edge loop on the center, right? Because that kind of sets it up to have symmetry for us. There we go. And of course, if I want to, I could just turn my move tool on. I can even hold down tilde for tweak if I just want to tweak some of these up in a little bit, just to kind of get that shape of the jawline a little more rounded off there, right? Remember, holding down tilde is your tweak marquee tool, right? Quite useful for doing some shaping if you need to. Now, one of the things about the face is you will notice that right now I have kind of 10 wide, right? Now, I usually would do this with 8 wide, but we kind of just left it alone this time around, right? There's no real right or wrong. I think in this case we'll just go with 10 wide. But if you really, really wanted to have 8 wide, you could always take out this edge loop down the center right here, right? Because we did add that edge loop up the leg for the toes and all that stuff, right? So we could always take this edge loop down the center out, and that would give you 8 wide. There's no real right or wrong with that, though, at all, believe it or not. 10 wide is okay. It gives you a little more to work with for your shaping stuff. So we're just going to keep it with 10 wide, right? That'll be fine. Now, in this case, we have, like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 polygons, but symmetry does. So that's 10 wide. We want that, right? If you've done all the other steps right, you should have 10 wide. And I'm going from the 3-star here to the 3-star on the other side, right? So remember, there's that vertex right here where my cursor's at. That's got 3 edges. That's a 3-star. Now, you'll notice that that 3-star is kind of up in roughly the forehead area, right? Because we did a little shaping earlier in that first video to make sure that that kind of edge that was initially there after the jaw extrusion was in place. Just like we would have kind of this 3-star here. And we made sure this 3-star was kind of lower down. So it's kind of one of those things, before you add too many edge loops through there, kind of try to make sure that kind of like this edge loop and this edge loop, particularly the ones going into the 3 stars, are roughly kind of in the forehead and roughly kind of in the kind of chin, kind of jawline area, right? Kind of see where those are at. And you'll see that we now have 2. So 10 wide is what you should have. You should also have 2 wide, or 2 tall, using these 3 stars here and here as guides, right? That 3-star here, that 3-star here. But we want actually 5 tall, right? So we're just going to bring up multi-cut, right? Remember that the quick key, that's Control-Shift-X. However, I think that's controlling something on Snagit for me, which is the software I'm using to record this. So I'm just going to turn the tool on. But the quick key is Control-Shift-X for that. So if you hold down Control, you can of course put an edge loop in here, and kind of another one down there, and then I kind of usually put one maybe up on the forehead a little bit. So we do want to put 3 more edge loops in there, right? Because that will give us, remember I'm just holding down Tab for drag select, right? Tab is your quick key for drag select. So that now we have 5 tall, right? From this 3-star here to this 3-star here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 polygons. So basically we count 5 to 10. And you'll notice that actually gives us enough geometry to really start to kind of block in a form here. Now, the shapes we want to create for eyes and mouths are what we call a radial pattern, right? Now, there's a couple ways to get a radial pattern. One, you could actually use retopo and the quad draw tool that we kind of explored on our clothing in the previous video, right? That's actually a pretty popular way to build a lot of a character nowadays. In fact, usually my faces tend to be weird, a little more alien for my creatures, so I tend to do that myself, where I basically just retopple those parts, because I'll do some sculpting on them, make a really weird shape or form, and I'll just retopple those. Some people you'll see will build polygon to polygon or extrude border edges and make them as separate parts. Some people will loft them, right, and then kind of start to bridge them on to the rest of it. None of these are wrong. They're just different ways to do it, right? They're all still creating the same basic kind of edge loop. I will say the kind of polygon to polygon kind of lofting method is kind of slow and clumsy, and that if I was going to pick two methods, it would be the box modeling method, which I'm going to show you, or the retopo method, which is what I actually do often use for a lot of my heads or the weird parts of my characters. So retopoing can actually be a cool and powerful way to do that. But it's easier to teach how to do good edge loops in a more structured, safer fashion on your first character creature through box modeling. And it's still a great way to build characters and creatures, in all honesty, even though retopoing with quad draw has become an awesome new tool in our arsenal that can be used in lots of cool ways, including rebuilding characters. So in this case, I'm going to do a little reshaping because this arches up a little bit. In this case, I'm going to use my tweak tool, right? I'm already in face selection mode, right? Hold down right mouse button, face. And remember, if you hold down tilde, it's the key right above tab, tilde, it's got the little squiggly line on it. Your tweak tool is just on until you let it go. And this could be a great way to just kind of move some of these faces in a bit to kind of get their shape kind of in a better place. Of course, if you want to, you can go to edge mode and kind of use tilde to tweak that edge. You can even hold down right mouse button and do multi, right? And that puts you in a super mode where you can use a face, edge, or vertex. But because of the very nature of the way this is on, you see how it's kind of sticking through the other side. One of the things you can actually do is, if you need to, you can actually kind of tell it to not highlight back faces or nearest component, right? There's some options there if you want to, but I find sometimes multi is just a little weird inside of Maya. So I think we'll just kind of stick with edges and faces and switch back and forth between the selection types. So I just want to kind of move those down to get the shape a little bit better. Maybe hold down right mouse button, edge mode again. Tilde, just kind of tweak these down a little bit. Be careful because it might grab the other side, so just kind of keep an eye on that it's grabbing what you want it to. It might even be one of those things you might temporarily turn camera based on, right? When you're in this mode, just because it's not going to grab anything on the back. Keep in mind that pick marquee will no longer work as usual, right? It won't grab stuff on the back. Which it is. Weird. Probably just because it's an X-ray mode, right? So keep that in mind. You can turn that off and on if you need to. I'm going to kind of leave it off because I'm pretty careful about that stuff. But you can kind of just tweak some shapes, right? Just kind of get them in better places. All right. So in this case, I just kind of wanted to tweak some of these edges, just to kind of get them located a little better, a little more distributed, a little bit kind of straighter instead of so curved. You saw I moved some of these over more for the eyes, because believe it or not, right? Remember, we have 5 rows, right? So this first row, kind of right below the 3-star, that's going to be your forehead. We don't want to use that for the actual eyeball. So we want it to be that second row, right? That's row 1, row 2. We're going to skip row 3 because that's going to be for the zygomatic arch, right? And then rows 4 and 5 we're actually going to use for our mouth. So we're going to start with the eye though, and we want to use kind of this second row. I'm going to hold down tab for drag select because that's great, right? That's that you kind of hold down left mouse button and move them. And I want these 3 polygons, right? Now you'll notice that there's actually a gap of 4 polygons between the eyes, and that's fine. We want that, right? In fact, if I hit W, I can just kind of move these in a little bit more. And you notice how they're in the right place? It might be one of those things where maybe your eyes are way over here, or you didn't do enough shaping. So you're going to go in here and you're going to grab these polygons and go, that's not where the eye's located at. I'm just going to select my own polygons. Do not do that. I am showing you the right polygons to do these on. You just might need to do some shaping, right? There's times when your instincts are going to tell you to do one thing, and I can tell you right now your instincts are wrong, right? They're not right. We really want to have this amount of polygons for the bridge of the nose. we really want kind of this one right here in particular. Like I said, this could just be moved over a little bit, right? So it's a little straighter. But we really want this many polygons to the eye, and we want the kind of outer row of the polygon for the eye to kind of be part of that edge loop for that 3-star, because we're going to clean that up later on. We're going to get rid of 3-star later on. So sometimes you just need to make sure to overuse the amount of polygons, right? Because we're not just creating the eye opening, we're creating the whole eye kind of lid area, right? The whole eyelid area. And we're creating what's called a radial pattern. And radial patterns are basically circular edge loop patterns, right? That's really what they are, right? So it's like you have kind of some edge loops that go around in circles or ovals, and then you have edge loops that kind of radiate out from the center of the eye. A radial pattern, kind of like if you were to draw like rays coming off of the sun, right? So radial patterns, keep that in mind. And like I said, lofting can get you there, retopo you can do that, but believe it or not, your extrude tool can do that as well. So believe it or not, on this face, we're actually not really using any new tools. It's just going to be some extrusions on the right polygons, right? So I'm going to extrude, and then I'm going to hit R for scale, so we can scale this in, right? And now you'll see that we can start to kind of move this in some more, and that's actually going to be kind of the start of the eye cavity. See, I kind of move it back a little bit as well. And now all of a sudden you see how we can kind of come in here, and these can be moved in a little bit more, and these can be moved in more. That can kind of stay out there. And now all of a sudden you see how kind of the basic eye radial pattern, once we kind of saw that we were using this whole thing, is there. And remember, we're not just creating the eye opening, we're creating this larger structure, right? The eyelids, part into the brow, right? When you really think about the actual shape that your eye has, it is kind of that circular shape, and the way it kind of moves and compresses does that. Even your mouth has that radial pattern structure. If you actually look at the muscles underneath your mouth, they're actually kind of radiate out towards the center, pull your mouth in all these different shapes and directions. So we've generally found that radial patterns for eyes and mouths work great. Technically, your model is actually made of radial patterns, because that's what you extruded your arms, fingers, toes. It's just that they're so elongated and stretched out that we don't kind of see them as radial patterns. But you can already see here that you're kind of already starting to see kind of that radial structure. And you see you can always do shaping as you go along, right? I'm going to go back to face selection mode, right? Kind of just select these 3 faces again. And I'm going to do another extrusion, right? So I just extrude it again. I just use Control E for the extrude quick key. And remember, since my the uniform scale is selected, I can just use middle mouse button to kind of scale that in. Now this one's going to move out a little bit because we want that to actually kind of be the, and maybe make it a little bigger, because we want that to be the eyelid part of this shape, right? So that's kind of the eye cavity that recesses in a little bit, but then your kind of eyelid comes back out over the eyeball. So that's the second extrusion. And then I'll do a third extrusion, and that one I'll scale in just a little bit. And then I'll do a fourth extrusion that will just move back. So W for move, and that's actually going to be the true eye cavity, right? Now those 3 polygons are expendable. There's going to eventually be an eyeball there. So I'm just going to delete those. There we go. Now, some of the things you can do to shape. Well, I'm going to hold down right mouse button, go to edge mode. And I can easily come in here and I can grab some of these edges right here. Right? Remember, shift adds. And then I can do some free moving to kind of get it more in position there. If you want, you can double click on an edge loop and then control to deselect that one. Move that one in. And you see how you can start to actually pull these to kind of match the shapes. Alright? So W to move this one kind of back over here, and then this one can kind of, these couple could come up here. W for move. That one could probably just come back all together on its own. And you'll see we slowly can actually move these edges kind of into the right places we want. Now you'll notice I'm going to actually take this crease here and I'm going to soften it a lot, right? So if you move an edge pretty far back, it makes a noticeable crease. And sometimes you want that, right? We kind of definitely want that more kind of on that upper eyelid. Maybe a little bit less pronounced than it is there, but we definitely want that kind of on the upper eyelid. But on the lower eyelid section, we really don't want that, right? So you see how we kind of bring that out and soften that a lot? These can kind of come down and in to be softened a little bit as well. So we can just kind of start to soften some of these shapes and forms. Kind of bring that one back out and forward a little bit. Maybe that one right there, kind of back a little bit to soften these. But you can see how we can quickly, and remember you can use the tweak tool for this if you want to as well. You see how all of a sudden this shape starts to take on more and more of the eye form? This can come back to kind of create a bit of that roundness there where it kind of creases in. But you can just kind of start to follow the shape, right? In fact, your kind of lower eyelid area isn't quite as creased or curved as the bottom. So the top's got more of a curvature to it. Actually look at eyes, and you'll see that that's the case. Eyes actually have more curvature on the upper eyelid. More definition of the crease for the eyelid as well. So this is kind of softer and less creased. That'll help it to not look like goggles, right? Particularly if you soften kind of the side bottom here, so there's very little of a crease, but you still want a little more on the top. Now we kind of do need a little more edge loops in here. So we're going to go to multi-cut. All right, and I'm going to kind of put an edge loop in here and here, kind of through the center of the eye. All right, and notice that gives us more to shape with. So I could easily just kind of grab some of these, shape it a little bit more if I wanted to kind of get that shape a little bit more accurate there, right? Gives you a little more for the nose bridge and ridge there and all that stuff, which is good. You might, take a couple of these faces on the side of the head here, bring them in. And you'll also notice that there's a lot more, if I go to vertex mode, there's a lot more edges back here that you can use to start to get the skull shape a lot better, right? And even this shape better. So kind of take advantage of some of this extra geometry that's there to do better shaping. So I just kind of brought those down and kind of straighten them out so they're not so up and all that stuff. And I usually like to put kind of one more edge loop through the side of the eye too. So multi-cut. So I do two here, right? I put one here, go to edge mode. I put one here, and then I usually put two here with my multi-cut. That's one of the reasons why I deleted those back faces right there, right? So that way there's just there's going to be an eyeball there, so those polygons don't need to be there. It makes it so you don't have to worry about those being there for shaping purposes. But I do like to put two extra edge loops kind of through the bridge of the nose, kind of into the corner of the eye, and then kind of one on the outside. And that will actually allow us to tweak the shape a lot more. Remember, you can use tilde for tweak, right? And that can make it even easier to do some of these little tweaks to kind of sharpen up some of that form a little bit more, right? You can even bring some of these back a little bit. So you see how sometimes your tweak tool is actually one of your best friends? I love the tweak tool. I've been trying to kind of stick more with the regular shaping tools just so that you guys kind of have a pretty good sense that you can always just use your regular move tools. But you see how once you get used to the tweak tool, it's quite fast and quite easy to work with to quickly make little shape adjustments that take a little bit longer by having to click and then middle mouse button, right? Because that's 2 clicks instead of 1. All right, so that's the eye, but that was really just a couple of extrusions, a couple of edge loops. And you're just doing it to the right polygons and then trying to move some edges to create shape, right? And the nice thing is you can watch me. You can rewind me to watch which shaping I'm doing, right? So now we want to do the mouth, right? And so we go back to face mode, right? Hold down right mouse button, face. And now we'll notice that there is this third row here, right? Remember there was that first row up here, and then we used the second row, which actually is now more than 2 rows because we've added some edge loops to it, right? But really the eye is that second row still. So there's this third row right below the eye, right? And then there's row 4, and then there's row 5. Rows 4 and 5 are going to be the mouth. We're actually going to skip this row right here, right? And work with these ones. So we don't want to use this row for the mouth. That's your zygomatic arch, otherwise known as your cheekbone, right? So we want to actually skip row 3 and go to rows 4 and 5. So see how I used row 4 and 5? Remember that 3-star right here is kind of that little bottom end of it, right? So that edge loop right here coming out of that 3-star, that's kind of the bottom. And you'll notice that I did actually do 8 polygons wide, right? If you were using kind of the 8 system instead of the 10 system that we used here, you would do 2 polygons for the eye instead of 3, and you do 6 wide instead of 8 wide. But you see how you can actually vary that up pretty easily, and it just gives you a little more to work with. So we went with the 10 wide system. All right. Now you'll notice that the edge of the mouth selection also kind of happens to go into the edge loops that are in the center of the eye. Believe it or not, if you feel kind of the outer edge of your mouth and you kind of put your index fingers up towards your eye, they go roughly to the middle of the eye. Guys, do you think that's an accident? Nope. Right? That's why we go out to here. That's why we do 8 wide. That's why we kind of get to this very edge here because it just goes right into kind of that perfect positioning. And we skip that third row because we want that to give us some space for our nose and our cheekbone, right? Rows 4 and 5, 8 wide. Now, this radial pattern is going to be created through an extrusion. So this is the beautiful thing. Just like the eye, it's really just extruding a couple times, shaping it. And it's just knowing which polygons to extrude, right? So I'm just going to extrude, Control E for extrude, but it's the extrude button. I'm going to hit R for scale so we can scale in a bit. And I often scale down in the green as well, just to kind of overall kind of thin out the mouth a little bit. And then we'll bring it up to kind of roughly line up with the overall kind of mouth shape. Now remember, just like the eye, remember how we actually did several extrusions and the actual eye opening up here, but there's this whole radial pattern here, right? That's because your eye edge loops aren't just for the eye opening, right? They're also for kind of all of the skin and movement around that eye. That's going to go into kind of the lower cheek or the upper cheek, and that's going to go up into the brow area. And you see how those kind of edge loops are self-contained, that kind of they wrap all the way around. So if you needed to and you went to multi-cut, you can actually add edge loops back in that way, right? And you see kind of these edge loops kind of coming out of the center, kind of also radiate out, like kind of like rays from a sun, right? So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about a radial pattern, right? Kind of this circular pattern. But that pattern's bigger than just the opening, right? It's this large area because that's all the skin that moves, that stretches when your eyes blink, open and close. And the same thing with the mouth, right? So these edges can easily come back up a little bit. That one can come back up a little bit. If we wanted, we can even bring this one up a little bit more. So those kind of 8 wide, 2 tall faces, we just scale down and move in a position to kind of be the mouth opening. We said we have this larger radial pattern now here because that's going to be your mouth. And think about your mouth and just put your hands on your mouth and move your mouth around, right? And feel all that motion around that whole entire larger area. So remember, when we're creating this, it's for a much larger area. It's not just for the whole, right? We're not just creating the whole. Yes, we are creating the whole, but it's for all of the skin and muscles around that hole that are also going to create that motion. So that was one extrusion. I do a second one, and this one we push back, right? Now this one, I do leave those polygons there. We don't have to really get rid of those like we do with the eye. But that's going to actually be the true inner mouth, right? So now I just come back in here and do a little bit of shaping, right? We're going to kind of grab kind of maybe those edges right there, and we can just kind of move them up, right? To get just a better shape for that mouth. These ones can kind of come up a little bit. We're just going to close that mouth off, right? Because our mouth is, we don't want to worry about teeth and all that stuff, so we're just kind of trying to, we can grab kind of that edge right there, right? See it right there. And we're going to move this one back a lot. This one can come back a lot. And then you see how we can kind of slowly just kind of start to adjust some of these other ones, right? So you see how some of them are just a little bit off still, and we just kind of bring them down to straighten that form up a bit, right? So you're never really done shaping on things, right? There's always little bits of shaping that you can do to kind of adjust these forms to have them match what we want better. And you see I'm kind of doing it from different views, just kind of get a better sense and feel for it. And now you see we have kind of more of a properly, truly closed kind of mouth shape that's fitting overall to the basic shape. Now, it does have a bit of kind of the fish lips feel to it, right? So there's a bit of kind of like not much definition there, right? But this does give us kind of that core starting radial pattern with the overall shape, right? So it's great to just be able to kind of get the simpler form in here before we add extra detail, right? Remember, when you're building characters and creatures, it's kind of like gesture drawing, right? It's one of the things one of the best things I ever learned in a drawing class, particularly for drawing people and creatures and animals, is you kind of draw the simple lines and forms for kind of the major kind of blocking, right? And then you add details as you go along. And you've noticed this is what we're doing here as well, right? KISS is important. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Don't try to add in too much, right? A lot of that stuff's not even in the base mesh anyways, right? It's usually done with texturing. So I'm going to go back to multi-cut because I do need a little bit more to get this kind of lip area a bit better defined. So I'm going to hold down Control. And you notice that, see how we're kind of adding right here along this extrusion? It is self-contained, just like the eye is, right? So these extrusions are self-contained. So I can do that simpler extrusion and then just go add a couple of edge loops later on. And now you notice that that's looking more like the structure we want. And in fact, with this extra stuff here, it makes it a lot easier to maybe grab some faces, bring them down to get that even better. We can go to edges again, right? just holding down right mouse button to switch to our different selection types. Remember, Shift will add to selections. And then we can do that view move, right? View move is really awesome. When you start to build characters and creatures, hopefully you'll eventually fall in love with view move because it makes your life a lot easier, right? But you'll notice that as you do some view moving here, as long as some of these are coming forward and some are coming in, you see how you can create that little bit of that kind of that little valley, right? If you feel your lips, there's kind of a little valley in between your chin and your lips, right? Just like we were kind of doing that kind of shaping to get the pectorals, right? Some edges kind of come out, some edges come in to create a bit of an offset, so there's a bit of difference in shape. And by, kind of taking advantage of that and moving things up and down, you start to define those forms or kind of bony structures like the clavicle. Same thing here, right? Same exact thing here. The corners of your mouth tend to get thinner, so you can always start to bring in these edges for the corners of your mouth, right? Some of them might be a little too high. You can always select an edge, turn your scale tool on, and uniform scale to make it a lot smaller, right? And you can always switch to vertex mode, right? Hold down right mouse button, vertex. And we can even use a tilde for our tweak, right? So I just come in here and I can start to tweak some of these guys in here a little bit more just to kind of thin out, right? Kind of these areas maybe thicken out. There we go. But we tend to like to kind of thin out the corner of the mouth, right? That just gives us a kind of a better lip here, right? And this can come in a little bit more, and you see how it kind of just has that kind of nice, more natural kind of creasing form, right? Because your lips get thinner at the corners, but stay kind of thicker in the center, right? But you see how just those extra couple of edge loops added so much? I'll even usually grab kind of this 5-star here, right? And we'll bring this in, and that really helps to kind of start to define, particularly if we go to edge mode, kind of this nasal labial fold, right? That little crease, right? There's that little crease kind of that goes from your bottom of your nose to kind of the corner of your mouth. That's called the nasal labial fold, right? And you can see that just by kind of working with some of these edges here and bringing them in, you can kind of get that defined fairly well, right? Get that little crease in there. But usually this little 5-star will kind of come in here and kind of be right in there. The corners come in and tend to be thinned out. All right. And now that gives us a pretty good mouth, right? So now what we want to do is we want to do our nose. So we're going to go back to face selection, right? Hold down right mouse button, face selection. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit Q from my regular selection tool so I don't have to worry about my move tool being on. Is I'm going to select some polygons. Now, I always select 12 for the nose if I'm box modeling it, right? Kind of 3 tall, right, and 4 wide. Now, why did I pick these 12 though? Well, you'll see the bottom row is actually part of the very outer radial pattern for the mouth, right? So these quads all go through here if I turn multi-cut on, right? So there's an edge loop that goes through there. That's part of that radial pattern. So the very bottom of the nose should be part of kind of the very outer edge of the radial pattern for the mouth. In fact, that's that loop area that's got that nasal labial fold, because that little crease goes from the kind of, if you feel it, goes from the bottom of your nose, roughly the bottom of your nose, to the corner of your mouth. Once again, you think this is an accident, why I did the eye and the mouth first, right? Nope. So that bottom 4. And then you'll see kind of the top row kind of goes right above this little 5-star right here. So it's kind of in the upper corner of the eye. Now what we're going to do is we're going to extrude, right? Because really the nose, when you feel it, is actually, it's an appendage. It comes out, so you always extrude to create appendages. And there we go. Now, of course, we could always do a little more shaping. We can see that this edge loop sticks out a little bit more here, so we can start to bring that down a little bit more. This edge loop can come up a little bit more, and we can slowly refine this shape to get it to kind of match the picture a little bit better. All right? So just kind of a little bit of that last little bit of shape tinkering, just to kind of get everything to match up better. There we go. All right. And this should match a lot better for us. Maybe go to vertex mode really quick, just to grab those verts, bring them in. There we go. And you can always do little tinkers like this just to kind of get that shape better. There we go. Now, one of the last things I like to do on the nose is kind of take care of this star situation here, right? You notice we kind of have this star situation going on. So you can see that there's a 3-star here, right? Kind of that vertex with 3 edges coming out of it. And then there's a 5-star situation up there, and then there's a 5-star situation right there, right? Those are not really something we want to keep there, right? We could come up with something a little bit better than this. And it's quite easy, and it uses that spin edge tool that we've saw on our hands, right? So what I do is I select the edge in between the 5-star and the 5-star. Now this can only have 3 possible configurations when we spin it, right? Edit mesh, you have the spin edge tools, right? We saw that with our hand, right? Edit mesh, spin edge, backward, forward. In this case, I'll just use the spin edge backward. And you'll notice that it spins and it tries a different configuration, right? Because it's not creating anything new, just it's trying different configurations. But we still have that 5-star, just in different areas, and that 3-star. So we'll go to Edit Mesh and we'll spin edge backward again. And now you notice how that 3-star is gone. And one of those 5-stars is gone. One of them's still there. There's still a 5-star there, right? You can't get rid of all 5 stars. But it did get rid of one of them and that 3-star. And you see how that edge flow through there is just nice and clean now? Now if we spun one more time, same thing. See how it goes back to the start? So remember, these will eventually go back to the start, right? They will circle back in a loop. So just remember that and be careful of it. And then you see that that nose just has a really strong kind of edge loop structure now, which is great for us. All right. We've pretty much got the face just about good to go. And what we want to do now is we really want to, I think I'll probably stop this video and make another one because it's probably getting a little long here.